Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited to have returning guest Danielle Dinkelman with us today. Danielle is a national board certified health and wellness coach and the author of the book, If Diets Don't Work, What Does? She is also the co-founder and CEO of Advanced Corporate Wellness, which provides health and wellness coaching as an employee benefit to high-strain, high-stress businesses and nonprofits. As a sought-after coach and speaker, Danielle is known for her philosophy of doable, enjoyable changes for long-lasting results. Danielle lives in Oregon City with her husband and 4 children. She is a trained classical musician who loves the outdoors and enjoys rock climbing at her local bouldering gym as often as she can. Thanks so much for being with us again here, Danielle.
My pleasure.
Welcome back.
My pleasure.
We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun last time, and I'm excited that you're into season 2 with your podcast and excited to chat more.
Yes. Well, I think maybe we'll first just kick it off with how have you been since we last spoke and what's new in your world?
Oh my goodness. Do you remember what time of year it was at the time of the recording for the last?
Oh my gosh.
It was like July or it was the summer, I feel like.
Yeah,
it's been a long
summer.
time. Yeah.
Maybe and so here we are. We're January 2025. Man. So it's probably been at least 6 months. Well, I finished up grad school. I had gone back to school.
Yay!
Thank you, to finish to do an MBA, Master's of Business Administration. And I think as business owners and entrepreneurs, I don't know if all of us are this way. I know all those of us in this room are this way. Very just always hungry to learn. I know Ashlan is always signing up for some course or certification. And a lot of my favorite entrepreneur friends are always sharing book recommendations with me. And we're always learning, and because we're always being stretched, right? To do new things. And so for me, going back to school to get that MBA was a huge undertaking, but it just filled some gaps that I wanted to see if there was a way to fill, and it did not disappoint. It was a great experience. So that was really the biggest development in the last 6 months, was wrapping up that program.
Congratulations. That's huge. That's a huge undertaking for anybody at any point in their life, but then to do that on top of running a business or two and multiple kids and just life in general, that's a lot. That's a huge accomplishment. Accomplishment.
Yeah. I mean, saying yes to a big opportunity like that, it definitely comes with a lot of what I would call trade-offs. You can't just add that on and say, oh, and everything else can stay the same. It was like a very intentional decision that Blaze, my husband, and I made. And we sat the kids down. I'm like, okay, mom is going to do this. And these are the things that are going to change. And that was an ongoing conversation of how do we support mom, which I am so, so grateful for that. It was amazing. And now we're transitioning back, not back to normal, but kind of creating a new normal, because now so much of the time and energy that I was putting into the program, I'm really working on doubling down on our business itself.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And I really like that point you made, is that like you're allowed to take on a big undertaking, but to expect things to stay exactly the same is just not realistic. And I really relate to that as a parent as well. I feel like as a parent and entrepreneur, I have, my son's been around for 2.5 years now, and I still am struggling with that concept of I cannot do the same amount of work and put in the same amount of energy that I did before having a kid. Like that's still something that I'm trying to reason with in my head and reckon. And I feel like a lot of people do that. You take on, oh yeah, I can add this new thing to my list, or I can take on this on the side, but that does mean that something has to change a little bit at least,
Absolutely. Absolutely. An analogy I like to think about with that is like with our wardrobes, right? With our clothing. When we start buying more, actually just it kind of made me think of it because we were just talking about this earlier. Blaze had gotten a few new dress shirts and a few new like pullovers and sweaters and things. And he's like, I need more hangers. Or maybe I need to get rid of some old clothes. It's kind of that question of, how much room do you actually have in this closet? And if new things are
Right.
coming in, you might need to let old things have an outlet to leave.
Yeah.
And our lives are no different. Our time, our energy, and gosh, you throw kids in the mix. It's not just a question of time. It's a question of energy and focus and motivation. And those are slippery things that are hard to pin down.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And it's hard to explain it to people beforehand, right? Like, oh, when you have a kid, yeah, things are going to change. Or when you take on this new things will change for your life. It's kind of hard to fully understand what that's going to look like until you're
You
in
don't
it
know.
too.
You don't know what
So,
it's going to look like. And I think that's part of the reason that transitions stress me out so much because I'm a control freak and I want to know and I want to make a plan. But sometimes we have to say, okay, I know it's going to be different. I don't know exactly how, but here's a few things I know I could put in place to help and we'll figure it out as we go. So, and that served us pretty well this last year.
it's great.
Yeah.
And that's a great reminder as an entrepreneur, because even just in business itself, things change and things transition.
Constantly.
You get new employees, you lose employees, the industry changes, changes happen around us that we just have to adapt to. And to just kind of have that mentality moving forward, I think really helps you. And I think that's also why a lot of certain personality types are attracted to entrepreneurship, because it's forever changing.
Yeah. It's like the thing that makes it fun and the thing that makes it absolutely maddening sometimes. But yeah, the more I've made peace with that, the happier I've been as a business owner. And I don't take it personally, right? Like clients actually, Ashlan and I, we supported each other through this we had a client leave that had been with us in my company for, gosh, 2.5 years. And it was one of my favorite clients. It was a nonprofit that I really cared about. And it was sad to see that contract go and for us to not support them and their mission anymore. But, budgets change, leadership changes.
Yeah.
And that was a learning opportunity for me of like, I am not going to take this personally. I'm not going to take this, like, it doesn't need to mean anything other than it's coming to a close. And you know what? There were 2 new contracts coming in at the same time. So things have a way of working themselves out. So yeah, when we just can like have the expectation that change is the norm, that then we can kind of have like a healthy level of detachment and not get like emotionally wrapped up in like maintaining the status quo that we prefer, which is hard. Easier said than done.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's such a good point. As a recovering control freak, I too.
I should say that. I should say I'm recovering. Maybe you're further down the path.
I'm still definitely there. I have my moments.
But yeah, I was going to dive into the next, I guess, topic. We were chatting, and you kind of perfectly teed it up, Danielle, about the relationship of entrepreneurship, parenthood, having, I feel like just hearing you say that, when you decided to take on this master's and grad school program, that everybody came together as a team and was like, okay, we have to support mom. This is, what she is working on. So how does, having, I know you personally, you and your husband having a business together, you guys run your own businesses separately, you have 4 children who are not young, but they're not, not old enough to be getting around by themselves. So how does, being a parent, being a woman business owner, how does that all, work, give or take, in your zone as well?
Yeah, I think it's awesome that we're talking about it, because I don't think I have it all figured out. I think I'm constantly reevaluating and checking in of what's working and what's not working. There is a lot to manage there, right? Like, we want our businesses to be successful. My husband has his own business as a consultant doing fractional CFO work. And then he's my CFO and my business partner in our corporate wellness company, ACW. And I actually am officially closing down my private practice. I don't know if I shared that with you, Ashlan.
Oh,
This
you did earlier.
is like
I didn't know if you wanted to share it, but
yeah, I'm happy to share, because that's the other part of, like, back to what we were saying about change being the norm. We have to transform. We have to be willing to, like, leave behind what worked then and what may not be the priority now. So yeah, me closing down my private practice, it's been an ongoing process. It's kind of been happening over the last year and a half, but really making some final decisions to the point that I'm even going to, like, close down the LLC and clean out the bank accounts and just, like, really wrap it up. And that's all in the service of these trade-offs that we were talking about, right? Like, if I can constantly be checking back in with myself, like, what's the most important thing in my business? How is my relationship with my husband? What's the temperature of our family, and how are those relationships between the kids, between me and the kids, Blaze and the kids? Like, there's so much there. So yeah, for me, 2025 is really about kind of clearing the deck and making space for those things that are most important to me. I don't know if that answers your question. We could probably go lots of places with that, but that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind.
I love that, clearing the deck and making space for opportunities and things that serve you. Like, I feel like that's a big theme this year too, for a lot of people, is just making the space for the right things instead of focusing on a whole bunch of things at once.
Yeah, it doesn't serve us. And, we have kind of a sneaky cultural thing around, like, being busy, right? That we almost kind of, like, wear it like a badge of honor. There's some really good, voices talking about that and calling that out. I think Greg McEwen does a really good job of calling that out in his book, Essentialism. But I think that's spot on. Like, so I really try to catch myself of not making that the highlight of what I share when I meet people or when I'm having conversations. So really trying to be a little counterculture that way of how can I just, like, thin things out and have just a hyper focus on the things that matter most. And so, like, within my family, I have very specific, like, kind of honestly habits that I've broken it down to. And it's just as simple as, did I connect with Blaze today? Did I really connect with each of my kids? And I reflect on that, and I do sticker charts, because I'm on the inside, I'm 4 years old still, and it just makes me happy. So makes it fun, and it helps me focus on what's truly important. And to me, it's like, it doesn't matter that the kitchen's clean or not. It matters that the kids know that their mom is there for them, and that I'm there. I can hear them and see them and support them. And then in my business, really, we took a quarterly retreat every 3 months, and we really reflect on the last quarter and we plan the next quarter. But this one was really fun because we kind of got to zoom out and look at the whole year of 2024 and looking forward to 2025. And for me, it was really this clarity of the only thing that matters in 2025 is for me to drive sales in my business. We are building and growing so much with our team and our infrastructure and our systems and our processes and all these things. But like, the lifeblood of my business is, do we have new clients coming in? Are we growing? And there's no one else in my business doing the sales. That's all on me. And so the best thing I can do is, again, clear out as much of the extra, as much of the noise, delete or delegate as much as I possibly can in the business, so that I can focus first and foremost on sales or the things that drive it and support it. So like the work I do with Ashlan on our marketing is really crucial to that too. So yeah, really, really getting really clear and really focused on what's most important it's a really refreshing way to live, but it takes effort, a different kind of effort than just saying yes to everything and just being frazzled and kind of, I don't know, I think that kind of keeps us in a little bit more of a victim and a reactive way of living. And I really prefer the opposite. I prefer to be proactive and preventative in a lot of what I do. And that seems to work.
That's good.
I love that. Yeah. I love that response. And I feel that. That because it's so easy to just stay in that zone of feeling frazzled and overwhelmed. It's like, oh, well, we're doing things and it's busy and, but to really take a step back and look at the big picture of what's important and what's not. I mean, not only is that going to help you long-term just for your mental health, but also it's more strategic and probably more profitable to be able to step back, look at everything as a whole, and figure out the best strategy for yourself.
Absolutely. I love what you said. And those really are the two reasons to do it, right? To force yourself to get really clear on what is most important, and to be a little ruthless in the things that you delete, and to be brave in the things that you delegate, because those are not easy things to do. But I love how you pointed that out. It's for my mental health. And it is for the profitability of my business. Like, it made me kind of think of shiny object syndrome, right? There are so many things that we could do, so many things we could invest in. There will always be someone ready to sell you something that will make something easier or make your life better, make your business better. Always. And okay, well, what if we turned off all the noise and got really clear and present with ourselves and our families and our businesses? What do I say is most important? And then go to the market and say, I need a sales coach, or I need a new administrative assistant. Then we go make those investments and go make those decisions.
Absolutely.
That's such a good point. I can't remember who it was. I'm blanking on her name, but she did like a 4-part really short video series about, do I need this right now? And like, where did it come up that I should buy this? Like, do I need that course? Do I need, whatever toolkit it is or something like that? And it's like, did you know about the problem before you decided to buy it? Or did the person who is trying to sell it to you come up with the problem and now you think you have this problem, or you found like an excuse to do that? Or I think I was telling you, Danielle, that with another client of mine, we got like pitch slapped by this guy who was just like, no, you need this, and no, you need coaching, and yeah, you need to fix your operations. And like the pain point that he was narrowing in on, we're like, we don't have that pain point. We have a different pain point. And every case study, every testimonial was about the pain point that we don't have. So I'm like, yeah, no, goodbye. Well, you're not, you're not selling what we're wanting. We don't want to run a business where we have to sit in coaching conversations. Like, we need to get in front of more buyers. And you don't have a solution. You're saying that our process is bad. Our process is fine. It's the getting in front of the buyer that we need. And then, when I had very pointed questions for this man, he just like dodged around it. And I was like, yeah, no, if you can't straight up answer my question, or if you go back to the same case study, I'm like, that's not a response.
Yeah, I think it's our job as entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders. We have to slow down enough to get clear on what the main thing is. What is the actual issue you're trying to solve, right? And is it Stephen Covey that said we got to keep the main thing, or the main thing is to keep the main thing, even better.
The main thing. Yeah.
It's so easy to get distracted and deterred. But yeah, I think I'm learning to like find those opportunities to be still and to be quiet and to just like increase my thinking time, which is hard to do as a business owner and as a mom, but not impossible and so valuable. Being able to capture those insights and those moments of clarity and then communicate it well. There's a tool that Ashlan is familiar with now that I've started using, comes from Dan Sullivan. He calls it the impact filter. And it's a series of questions like, what's the purpose of this project or of this hire or this department, whatever. And it's just this series of questions that it forces us as the visionary, okay, how can I get clear on this and then quickly, easily communicate it with team, collaborators, whoever, but most especially with yourself so that you keep yourself accountable of like, this is it. If what we start doing starts going beyond or outside of this scope, then we are off track. So easy to let that happen.
Yeah, I love that tool. I mean, I feel like it's such a great, like, it's like a contract with yourself, right? Like, you know how we don't do anything in business without a contract. Yeah. Like, it's like your personal contract of like, and it also gives like, I mean, I know you and I are kind of like normalizing this in our process together, but it kind of also gives me something to land on and be like, okay, Danielle, like, here's, and I know people hate like hearing what they said back, like kind of thrown back at them, but it's like, but this is what you said. And if this is what you said and this is what you want to do, like, right. And it doesn't mean that you can't necessarily do this new thing, but probably what I would challenge is if we do want to do that, we need to revise the impact filter to allow space for this. But it gives you that slow down point of, we reflected on this and this is not where we want it. And I want to go back to, sorry, I'm going to pop around a lot today, apparently. I want to go back to the fact that you and Blaze have those quarterly business reviews, because I think that is so important. So important.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And I credit Greg McKeown with that idea. When I read his book, Essentialism, he talks about how he and his wife, Anna, take quarterly retreats, and that at first, when their family was really young, they did it only once a year, but as they got a little older, they were able to do it more often, and that's kind of what Blaze and I have done too. It also comes from Gino Wickman's book Traction, where he introduces his EOS system, the Entrepreneur's Operating System is, I think, what that stands for. Yep. He has a pretty good structure, and we use quite a bit of the EOS system in our businesses, and it's we've got kind of a format for those offsites. In fact, it feels like a lot of hard work. I got back from that retreat and my 15-year-old was like, "Mom, do you want to play this strategy game?" I'm like, "Nope, my brain power is gone. I need to recover." from my retreat. So sometimes it's a lot of work to do that reflection and to do the thinking and the planning and processing some of the issues that need to be resolved. But yeah, being willing to step out of the day-to-day operations, whether that's your family or your business or both, to kind of Blaze calls it climb the tree, right? Get the 100-foot view of where you are and where you've been and where you want to go, and we can make better decisions that way. We can't stay up there, but it's really important to periodically and intentionally do that. And getting away is really key to that, and having the kids not around. We dropped the kids off at my parents' house and we went and stayed at an Airbnb an hour away from there, and went and found places to go on walks and places to go enjoy a meal, and got the work done. Highly recommend it.
Honestly, just that like no kids thing just sounds like a great idea once a quarter.
Yeah. And
but yes, I love that. That's incredible. That I'm gonna take that idea as well. Our kid's still pretty young, but I know we can at least do it once a year.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. And I think that is challenging as parents. When you're also running a business, it's easy to kind of let the parent guilt kind of sneak in. Of like, oh, well, I was away from him all day, or he was at daycare all day, and now I have to like make up for that. I have so many friends that speak that way, and I'm always quick to say, daycare is good for them. They get to learn how to listen to other adults. They get to learn how to interact and socialize with other kids and different personalities. I put my kids in daycare when I was before health coaching, and I was teaching music lessons. That was kind of my first soiree in entrepreneurship. And I had that guilt of like, no, I was always going to be the stay-at-home mom, and I was always, going to do the ideal, right? We have like this ideal picture in our mind of what it looks like to be like that attendant parent. But I think we forget, and not all of us are trained in human development, that it's actually really good for these kids to let them have other places and other people that they respect and work with. It's okay. We don't have to make up for that time. And then it's also okay for us to have date night, right? It's okay for us to have a weekend away. And you know what? My kids are developing really amazing relationships with their grandparents. And that wouldn't be happening if I didn't want to get away from them every 3 months. So it's ultimately a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's that important piece there too of just remembering that you too are a human that has needs, and you deserve to have all of your needs met too, so that you can then give that to your children.
Yeah, put that on a repeat loop and sell that as a meditation. we need to hear that. We need to hear ourselves.
You deserve your life.
Yeah.
Well,
once you become a parent, it's not just, you're a vessel just for them. Like,
well, I think that's just so important too, that for your children later on in life, that you are, that they will move on and they will move out and they will have to be responsible. Like I have seen both sides of the coin with people who just keep, that they're like, we're just always around them. And I'm like, yeah. And then you've made them have like complexes because of that, like, or they're still living with you. Like you have to be able to at some point, like, you can't be like that. And then like when they turn, in their 20s and they're like, God, they're still here. And it's like, you kind of set them up to be attached to you in a not so healthy way. So, yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I'm sure more about parenthood and entrepreneurship will come up, but we wanted to dig in a little bit more into some of the topics that we covered in our last conversation, like burnout, self-awareness, and finding balance. As we head into 2025, Tory and I feel like these topics are more relevant than ever. You and I have talked about just like companies preparing for burnout, as layoffs has been happening, as people have been leaving, and like what what that looks like, in companies and for our society. So from your perspective, what are some of the signs or things that people can look for what burnout actually looks like? And then what is your own personal experience with it?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a huge topic. And I agree. I think there's increasingly amounts of just uncertainty. There are so many areas of our lives in this modern world that we are impacted by directly or indirectly, physically and economically, as well as politically and socially and emotionally. It's fascinating to me to see the impact that, hearing about, the wars that are going on in the world right now, and the terrible things that are happening in other places of the world, that compassionate people can get so wrapped up in the pain of others that it becomes their own pain. And I think it's a gift and a curse to be that sympathetic and that compassionate. But yeah, if you wanted to go find something to get yourself really worked up about it, you don't have to look very far. There's so much going on in the world that we could be upset, frustrated, depressed, hopeless about. And so, and I think we've actually talked about this before we hit record, of just, how do you get to a place of peace and a place of hope when there are such terrible things that are out of your control, but are still impacting you, impacting your family, impacting others' families? That is the big question. So yeah, when I think of just the uncertainty, that to me equals stress. And kind of like almost what we experienced in COVID, where all of us, there was just kind of like this hum under the surface. Like all of us were like, what the heck? This is scary. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what comes next. And it was palpable. And everyone that can hear and understand this recording shared that experience together, right? That was a collective experience. I don't know that it's a whole lot different now. It's just now it's about other things, right? So what can we control? For me, it always, like, stress management, burnout prevention, like all of that comes back to this idea of what is within my control and what is outside of my control. And Tory, you used the word realistic at one point. I think that is one of our most powerful levers when we're looking at stress management. I also think the word expectation is one of the most powerful levers that we can play with when we're looking at our own engagement with the news or with our day-to-day life, whether that's our job or our family or our business. And it comes back to self-awareness, of tuning in, of, am I okay? Like even just being in tune enough to know when your nervous system is kind of being activated, kind of that fight or flight response, and what does it feel like, and how do you know that you're okay? You're in kind of if there's fight and flight on one side, there's they call it rest and digest, right? It's that sense of safety that biologically and evolutionarily we're okay in this moment, right? So in the health and wellness space, there's a lot being talked about of how can we recognize our own stress response, and how can we create, simulate, initiate that relaxation response, that rest response. That right there is the key that unlocks it all for me. If we just all spent a little bit of time with ourselves to plug into that idea on an individual basis, we would live in a completely different world. We would all be a whole lot healthier and a whole lot happier. And that's really what it comes down to of why I'm so passionate about the work that we do in ACW, because the services we provide are one-on-one coaching that get to support people on an individual basis of how do you recognize your stress response in your body, in your brain? You know, it's a powerful thing to do. It's to just check in with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And you honestly kind of perfectly teed up the next question. It's like you knew. It's like you were in my brain. Um but that is such a big thing, is we've all been constantly dealing with just like this low level of stress and burnout, I think, for years, probably since way before COVID. And I think COVID probably just amplified that for
Totally.
sure. And then all the things that have happened since then. And so I guess, like, what would you tell somebody who like has been dealing with this for years? Like, I think I hit a point where I just didn't even recognize anymore, like, what was stress and what wasn't, and what's anxiety and what, or am I actually like having some sort of medical response right now? Like, what would you tell somebody to do to start recognizing those subtle signs so that they can start paying attention to it?
I love that question. I laugh because it's not usually the answer that the people that are experiencing that want to hear. Stop everything. Stop everything. Put everything down. Close everything. Turn it off. Even if that is for 5 minutes. Even if that is for an afternoon. Even if that is a day, a weekend, a week. Give yourself a sabbatical of some kind, to any degree, because it's in that stillness that we can start to listen and to notice just how sick we are. And it is, to me, it is a form of dis-ease. It is a form of disease to like be in, they call it chronic stress, right? And I don't want to like preach this as if I'm beyond this at all. Like I want you to know that I still know what this feels like. And it just happened to me this week and today. And, I'm getting ready for a presentation with a client group, and my heart was racing, my mind was racing, like everything felt charged. That's how I would kind of describe it. And I knew what it was. I'm fried. I'm sleep deprived. Like there was so many things that had kind of led up to that. And what I have to do at that moment is say, how can I help myself right now? And usually that's, okay, look at your calendar. What can you clear? And I did. I cleared 2 appointments that they were important, but they didn't absolutely have to happen today. And so cleared the deck there. Even the presentation that I showed up to, I messaged my team member. I said, hey, can you take the bulk of these slides? I'll do the intro and the outro, but can you give the bulk of the presentation? She's like, yeah, totally, no problem. I'm like, awesome. Because I'm not firing on all cylinders. I'm in full fight or flight mode. I have to show up to this meeting, but I don't have to be the one that gives the whole presentation. So finding these ways that we can help ourselves out, right? Where can you just like shave and trim off bits and pieces until you can feel safe and soothed again. For me, like 2 or 3 years ago, it became a very intentional practice to teach myself how to rest, like not sleep, but just like be awake and rest. That was an extremely uncomfortable and foreign thing for me. And I know that I'm not the only one. So as we can notice those things in ourselves and start to respond and start to experiment, we can start to see the difference. So when I go into my stress response, I don't think of it so much as, oh no, I broke it, I messed it up, now I burned myself out. It's like, no, it's not over. the way I think about it is, okay, how am I going to recover? I've depleted. Now, how can I refill? I think of it as like a teeter totter. Like, okay, I'm way over here. How do I bring that back? So for me, that was I've kind of got some like embroidery projects that I'm working on that are very like just kind of soothing and restful. It's kind of an active rest for me to do that. Um, Certain sensory things like having a cozy blanket. Gosh, listening to music. I found a new album from an artist that I hasn't put out a new album for a while, and I was so surprised to see it. And just almost kind of distracting myself from the things that I was obsessing and stressing about, but in a very productive and healthy way of like, this is my way of giving my brain a break from that. And like, let's come over here, brain, and play and enjoy this music that's inspiring and fun for you. So, and that's just what it is for me. And that all comes from being willing to engage with it and not just ignore it or run away from it, but admit that it's happening and ask, what can I do to help myself out? How can I make this easier today so I can get through whatever I have to get through? And then once you clear the deck, sit your butt down and do nothing or do very little. Like definitely stop doing the thing that's stressing you out and see if you can recover. And I plan on staying in my pajamas all day tomorrow because I need a reset. I need a refresh.
All right.
It's that week off.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny hearing you talk about that because it reminds me of, we are in January. Lots of people do the New Year's resolution thing in January. And, I've already had it top of mind that when I get back to Vegas, I'm going to, start my gym and, like my normal things because I'll be in my normal environment and get to reset, my time and my schedule the way I want when I'm not living out of a suitcase. But then I had to subtly remind myself, like, don't go hard at the gym because you will end up, rather than being able to go like the next day that you want, you'll just be so exhausted and tired because all your muscles will be, in pain and things. So similar for the burnout thing. I mean, it is like a muscle. Yeah. Your brain is a muscle that you have to give rest and relaxation to. And when you were talking about embroidery, there was I was, as you know, I was house dog sitting for my dad, and I was like, God, I wish I had like a coloring book just to like relax, so you're still like doing something, but it's really like soothing to your brain because it doesn't, it's a coloring book. You really don't need to do much else. And then I did fall back on just like journaling, like just brain dumping, like having something out there, but then also letting your mind like you said, relax and not think about the thing. And I feel like anytime that I've done that or I'm taking up doing morning pages again, is like it gives your brain that rest or shifts the direction instead of being focused on the high stress thing. And like you said, with the fight or flight, I mean, it is a primal instinct that we ran away from, from whatever was going to be harmful to us. We're not in that time right now where a saber-toothed tiger might murder us, tomorrow. Yeah. But we need to be able to have those places and spaces where we're able to act on it in what it means to be, in the here and now in modern day times as well.
I wish we could just tell our bodies, hey, I'm safe. Like, it's okay. Like,
you can. Do that. Your body will hear you. And I have to share, I came across this, there's actually some really, really awesome studies that have been done about the health benefits of bird sound. This is going to sound really random, but I promise it'll connect to what you just said. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, okay, by listening to birds, whether it's real or simulated, our blood pressure regulates, our cortisol levels drop. All of these biometric stress markers normalize 2 to 3 minutes listening to birds. And I thought, whoa, that's so cool. And a little later, I came across something that explained why. And I don't know if this is true, but the internet said, and it made sense to me. But it said, the reason that we are soothed by when we hear bird sounds is because birds don't sing when there's a predator nearby.
Oh,
that's what I did when I. Oh,
it is
that makes so
100%
much sense.
true. It's very true.
That makes
Yep,
sense.
yep, it's truth. I've actually done this when we used to go on the camping trips with Betty's 360 back in the day. That was one of the activities we took the youth to do with the Audubon. I think she was from the Audubon. Is we would go into the forest and the girls would be giggling and all of this, and then we would have them like sit in a spot in a quiet place and then like journal what they were seeing, and then do an activity where we tried to get another girl to know where that person was sitting, when they were doing their journaling or whatever. But once we made them be quiet, then all the bird sounds came back, because they did not sound off when we were giggling and having fun. It was in that quiet space that they would all be talking to each other again, because they had to warn each other that hey, it's safe now. These are not predators. These are just giggling teenagers. So, but it's
okay.
true.
I feel validated. Thank you, Ashlan.
Yeah, it is very true.
I'm making sure bird sounds come into my day every day now. I usually listen to like some sort of like music or like nature sounds anyway while I'm working, just to kind of like keep my brain engaged. And I'm gonna make sure I have bird sounds on now, because I think that's gonna help. I'm gonna try that.
It's powerful. And so that's so it's learning, okay, what is my brain doing and what does my body feel like when I'm experiencing my stress response. But we also learning little things like this, and then going and experimenting with it and playing with it. And the next time you go out on a walk, notice those bird sounds a little bit more, and then notice your body. How are you how do your shoulders feel? Like, how does your neck feel? How's your breath? Like, just like how's your heart? Like, just these silly little things. But like, it's amazing if we can start to experience and really feel that and identify that relaxation response. You can trigger it for yourself. Okay. And for me, like, that's what breath work is really powerful for too. Like, that's what I was doing to get myself through my morning, was like, just really, really intentionally breathing in and breathing out really slowly, trying to calm my nervous system. But if we like have a really hard time, just remember how powerful that is to turn on those bird sounds on your phone, or to go out for a walk. That this is me telling myself that I am safe and it is okay. So I loved that you said that, Tory, of like, I wish we could just tell our brains and our bodies. You can, and it will listen, and there's more that we can do to help it. But yeah, that's that idea of safety. Just because there's more to do doesn't mean it has to be done right now. I remind myself that regularly, of like, yes, just because a client is expecting or waiting, or I said I would do X, Y, and Z, be communicative, but I don't need to be a martyr. I don't have to hurt myself in order to deliver.
Oh, I love that. I love that saying. Oh my gosh. I don't have to be a martyr. I can just tell my client that I'll get it to them next week.
And you know what? Chances are wasn't even on their radar. Chances are they're on to the next thing, and they appreciate that you're handling it and that you communicated and you move on. That's okay.
I'm doing that after this call. This has changed my life. I literally, in the back of my head, was like, okay, before I sign off, I have to remember to do this, 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 and this. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just going to send them oh my gosh. Life changed.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that, though. Like, you need somebody to say, hey.
I think we also need to replace the shame, guilt, and excuse culture too. Like, you can also just be like, I'm going to get to it next week, or, because I do feel like there's a lot of times, and I had been testing this out like towards the end of last year, is that like, you can just say, hey, I'm going to get, things change, due date. My due date for myself is now X, and not needing to put, it was because, this, and this, and this, it just share it. And,
Yep.
and most people are okay, especially people who have been with you for a really long time. Cause yeah, I had sent something to like my longest standing client and, she's like, don't make me be part of the stress of you coming back online. We can move it, And so, but,
Ooh.
she also
I
gave me kind
love
of
that.
permission to clear, um, and I was just like, that is just the kindest, most warm-hearted. But she and I, we interact a lot because we are business owners who have grown, substantially in the last couple of years of being together. And it's, there are days that are easier and there are days that are harder, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just so nice to also be open with yourself to do that and be kind to return that to somebody else without being like, oh my God, they're blowing me off, or oh my goodness, this and that, because there is a lot in the way that you can interact with people that doesn't continue to
Absolutely.
perpetuate this overworking and burnout culture and constant productivity.
Absolutely. Yeah, the more we can model that it's okay to be a human being and not a machine, I think that's really good for everyone. Yeah, I love so much of what you shared, Ashlan. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. It's a healthier way to be than just, staying up till midnight finishing the things you promise people and sending it off. It's so much healthier to just say, "Hey, I'm going to get to this
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow." Because at the end of the day, and yes, there are some things that are really important, but at the end of the day, most likely nobody's going to die if you if you don't turn
Mm-hmm.
in that
Mhm.
thing you told them you would turn in that day, or nobody. And that's the other thing is, like, for the most part, like you said, Danielle, it's probably not even on their radar. So if you just send them a quick note and say, hey, I'm gonna get this to you tomorrow, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
And let me just
cool.
add this, that if those that are listening, and those of us, I'm still working on this, I know you two are still working on this, as we start to be more intentional about that, of like, okay, I'm not going to be a martyr, but I will be communicative. The more we
Mhm.
communicate, the more we realize, I'm having to communicate and change my deadline a lot. Interesting. Okay. To
Yes.
me,
What's that
yeah,
pattern?
exactly. What got me here? To me, when I start noticing that, it's like, ooh, okay, I've started overcommitting. So the idea of margin, right? This is again, if anybody that's listening to this is enjoying this conversation, just go read Essentialism by Greg McKeown, please, because that comes out of his book too. What if we didn't say this is the earliest I can get that to you? It's kind of like, is it Amazon that's kind of like under promise, over deliver, instead of over promise,
Mhm.
then have to go back on your promise and communicate. And
Mhm.
okay,
Right.
so giving ourselves some space. Just because something's in front of you right now doesn't mean you have to act on it or put it on your calendar right away or get it done right now. It's tricky, but it can be done.
Well, we just did this practice in our meeting yesterday where I was just like, okay, instead of me being like, Danielle, I'm going to get these like 12 things done by our next meeting next week. Here's when it's coming, coming later in the month, or that's a February thing. Or, we had our, initially, I think at the end of the year, we were like, we're going to do monthly webinars. And we're like, that is not realistic. Let's do quarterly, but it did take us like time to like reflect, ingest it, come to the realization. And so I guess that is one of the things that's coming out of this is like having that time to let things simmer so you can go back and look at them
Yep.
again. And we don't need this fake urgency, or I call them fake deadlines. It's just like, would I like to get that done? Sure. Does it need to? Probably not. Or I've been seeing a lot of stuff at the beginning of this year with the Eisenhower matrix, the urgent, important
Mhm.
matrix. And then also I feel like what you've said about that delegate or delete. And we've been talking about this, is I'm like, is this an Ashland thing? is this a somebody else can do it thing? Is this really I shouldn't be doing this and the client, should be using a resource thing? I think it's just so valuable to take those moments and steps and stages to have really conscious thought about those decisions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have so many thoughts that I could spin off of that. I think I'll share one of the idea of valuing your time. I was sharing with you, Ashlan, some books I've been reading lately. It's called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, I believe. Man, if you don't value your time, nobody else is going to do that for you. And the more you value your time, the more you can gain the freedom of time. And the more we value our time, the more we are going to be realistic with our promises and our deadlines. The more we are going to constantly be asking, is that essential? Is that essential that I do it? If it is essential, could someone else do it? Those are kind of some of the next level entrepreneurship questions that I'm starting to come into as we grow and as our team grows. I don't have to wear all the hats anymore, and that's a good thing. So I'm practicing on taking those off and sharing the load with others, but I have to be self-aware enough to do that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, speaking of being self-aware and, recognizing burnout and figuring out how to kind of stop that cycle, we talked a lot about introducing that self-care and finding ways to bring yourself down. And I feel like self-care is also just kind of like a buzzword that kind of means a lot of things generically. So I guess to you, what is self-care to you, and how would you take it from being such a trendy topic to just giving people, like, what is really tangible advice would you give people to start making sure that they're implementing that on a regular basis?
I love that. Get a health coach. Honestly, it could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. It can be so simple. It can be, I took a nap today. It can be, I went for a walk, or it could be, I sat on my porch. Like, it can be the tiniest, simplest little things. It can be, I'm just going to drink this cup of tea and not scroll on my phone. So to me, whatever is helping you regulate your nervous system, to me, that's what I mean when I say self-care. And being aware of that teeter-totter of, okay, I've been over here and now I need to bring it back. There's a model of that stress response that I've taught for years, that I learned in my coaching training, that has always stayed with me, that it's not, the problem is not that we get stressed at all. The problem is that we don't recover after we have that stressful experience. So anything that helps you calm yourself, that is self-care. And we've talked about a lot of ideas here. That's where it's like, if you're having a hard time nailing that down, talk to a friend about it, talk to your partner about it, like, have a conversation, brainstorm some ideas, and then pick something to try. And then eventually you'll have this list. And now I'm at a place where there's different types for me. Like, do I want something that's playful and fun and exciting? Or do I want something that's like really soothing and like just very solitary and quiet, or, something in between? I have almost like a menu in my mind of different things that I know are enjoyable or restful or recharging for me. But it took a lot of experimenting to get to that point. And so now I'm at the point that I can just notice that I'm getting a little activated and a little stressed. And I can ask, when am I going to take time for myself? And what sounds good today? What would help me recover? What would help me reset? So that's the goal, is to get to the point that you've got things that can answer that question. But it takes some experimenting to get there.
I will
Absolutely.
add to that too, sharing with a friend or a partner or, a spouse so that you have the space to take that time. Because I'm very sure that you probably, with what you described with your family, like if you need to, get something that is away from them or even do something that's like, collaborative with them, being able to communicate that and have enough self-awareness for that is really important as well. And
Yes.
thinking through
And
those
the more we
things, because
talk about
some
it,
people never take time for themselves. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
exactly. Yeah, the more we talk about it in our families or in our work groups and in our friendships, like the more we normalize this idea of taking care of ourselves. Um, I took some time. I usually work first thing in the early morning because that's usually when I'm freshest. And I didn't. I stayed in my pajamas and my bathrobe and I sat on my couch and did the embroidery stuff. And my husband noticed. And later on that morning, he gave me a big hug and said, I'm so glad you were taking care of yourself today. I really like seeing you do that.
Oh,
And that is something that has been something that we've normalized for each other. And this has come from a lot of years of seeing each other be more of those martyrs of and wearing, busy and stressed as something that makes us somehow awesome, which it doesn't. We've come a long way on that, and I extend that to him too. When he gets back from the gym, I'm like, dude, good job. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. That's the other thing that I really emphasize too. It's like, oh, you're enjoying
right.
doing that thing that helps you be fit and strong and healthy. And so, yeah, definitely our words are powerful for others, but also for ourselves. Hearing ourselves say things, there's a level that like makes it real, and we start to be a little more maybe accountable, but in a really like positive
Yeah.
and like healthy way.
I love that.
It's really awesome. All right, I have like kind of two more directions I want to
Yeah.
go. One, I really, really wanted you to have an opportunity to share about your corporate wellness company, Advanced Corporate Wellness, or ACW Coaching, as we say it. Like, what? So, you know, business owners at all different levels listen to our podcast. And so, kind of, who is a good fit for ACW coaching, and kind of what is the work that y'all do with your clients?
Yeah, thank you. It's like one of my favorite things to talk about. Like I said, I think what we do is really special. I got to go to an event last night that got to share a bit about this, and I love it when people get it because like their eyes kind of get big and they kind of lean in. They're like, wow, that's cool. So what we're doing is making individual wellness coaching available to people's teams, to their staff members, and to themselves. So some of our favorite clients have been those, and you included, Ashlan, that have been, gosh, I want that for myself, and that's a business expense. Yeah, it's an employee benefit. So the company pays for it. It's more affordable than you think, and way more affordable than like leadership coaching or executive coaching. What we're doing is partnering with your employees to support them in whatever the habits and goals they want to set around their self-care, their stress management, nutrition, exercise, anything that's going to help them be able to feel better and do better at home and at work. Everything's confidential. It's a powerful way to support your team that you don't have to do yourself. I think the people that this is really for is kind of those small businesses is really where we're focusing, because those are the folks that usually know their team really well and they really genuinely want their team to be okay. And so they often find themselves being the wellness coach or the wellness advocate in their company, when really what they could do is just hire us, and we can bridge that gap for them. They don't have to know what's going on in everybody's personal lives and if they're okay. And but if you make a coach available to them that is that listening ear, it's amazing. I kind of think of what we do as like crisis prevention and chaos prevention. People have someone to talk to when things start to get tough, we can be self-aware and active in the things we can control in those situations before it becomes an emergency and they're saying, oh, I can't come into work, or I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice, so I like to think of this as a very, very cool, like, preventative thing that benefits the individuals as well as the company. It's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. That's really important.
It's very important, and it's interesting because I've noticed within the last year, I've heard of a lot of people like doing that. They're burnt out, they're over it, and they put in their 2 weeks notice and they don't even have anything else set up, which is like so scary, so scary. And, companies can make this choice to provide support. And I'm just going to toot the ACW horn a little bit here, is it works in combination with other benefits that are out there. So it's not a medical, you have kind of your standard set of benefits. This is an add-on that really is personalized and individualized. So it's not like hey, we gave everybody a gym membership, but somebody with a disability can't, make use of it. Or it's not, gendered specific or anything at all. And it's available to both your employees and contractors, and can be available at any level. You can choose to have boundaries around it, but somebody who you could make it available to somebody part-time, full-time, a contract staffer who is, close enough to being a full-time employee. There's a lot of ways that get around it that you can't do with other types of benefits. So I'm really glad. I mean, the first time Danielle and I talked, I was like, wait, what? No, yeah, this is great to be. And then also gets out of the areas where, you want to take care of your team members, but you don't want to break that like boss confidentiality line with them as well.
Yeah, when it comes down to it, there's always a power dynamic at play when we're talking about employment relationships, whether that's employee or even in contractor, right? Like there's something that we can't ignore there. So I know a lot of people that are like, oh well, my staff, we're really open with each other, and I'm like, yeah, you think they are, but when stuff really starts hitting the fan, they're not going to tell you. They're not. But if you had a program like this in place, like I said, what could be prevented, what could be handled before you ever hear about it? Maybe you never do, and I think that's the way it should be. But it's a powerful way to kind of take that people focused value that a lot of companies are having more and more of. It's a great way to kind of put your money where your mouth is in a actually very, very affordable and customizable way. So I have a lot of fun with it. I love partnering with those types of leaders and those types of companies. I always say I'm not here to convince anybody that it's a good idea to provide things like this to your team. If you lean in and your eyes light up a little bit at this idea, then yeah, you're probably my type of person and we could talk.
Yeah. It's encouraging to know too that there are companies out there that do have that philosophy and that are really excited by this and who will partner with you on this. Because it's kind of one of the reasons why I left the corporate world anyway, is just because it was really difficult to find companies with that set of values. And it's really hard to work in those types of environments where they don't value.
Yeah. That's really why I love working with like what I call like small and micro teams. So we work with teams like if you have 2 or 3 people, upwards to 25, and then we work with what we kind of consider more of our small to mid-sized teams of 25 to 50, 100, 200 is about where we say, there's plenty of other programs you could probably go after, but we love serving, like I said, those leaders that are naturally heart-centered. And they're a little progressive. They're a little like, ooh, I like this. It's different. It's fresh. It's new. It's a little progressive, and it's powerful. So yeah, thanks for letting me share a little bit. It's a neat thing, and I dream of a world where this is this is just as common as health insurance and EAPs, that we can have a service like this available to people. Like I said, if everyone had that one-on-one support, we would live in a very different world. So that's why I'm in it.
Absolutely.
That's great.
Well, final question. What song is repeat on your playlist right now?
Oh, so many songs. Okay, I'm totally on the Wicked bandwagon. Like,
Nice.
Yes.
all about it. Cynthia Erivo
So good.
and Ariana Grande just absolutely hit it out of the park. And as a trained musician, I do not give that praise lightly. I have mad respect for both of them. And yeah, anytime like a random song is popping into my head, it's usually off of the Wicked soundtrack.
My son loves the soundtrack. We listen to it in the car. We watch the movie on repeat in our house. Like it, we love it so much. He loves the song "What Is This Feeling" so much, and I think he loves the dancers. And he'll try and like mimic the dancers, and then at the end when she laughs, he'll like mimic that laugh. It's so funny to watch him do it. I have a video of him in just a diaper, just running around.
I was going to say, you showed me that one, right? Yeah, that's what I saw. Yeah.
Excellent. I love it.
It's really funny. I love that. Well, we're asking everybody that question at the end because we are putting together some playlists based off of the answers.
Yeah, I think the song that pops into my head the most is probably Defying Gravity. But yeah, I would say What Is This Feeling is a close second. And then yeah, it's so funny because like one of us in our house will start humming it, and then it'll get stuck in somebody else's head, and it just all goes downhill from there.
It just repeats. I love that.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being on with us again. I know it feels so weird to get to the end. I think we could have a conversation so much more, diving into more of the topics. But, you know, as we continue this podcast, we'll probably have you back again at some point for another amazing conversation. And just as a reminder for folks, if you have a topic that you want us to cover or a guest that you would recommend, please send us a DM or reach out to us at aloha@taketheleap-today.com. And we will see you next time for the next episode. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.